I'm starting with a quote that I've used on the show before. Our most valuable resources, creativity, innovation, invention, and reinvention are in fact unlimited. And that's a quote by David Grinspoon. I used this the last time I had a guest on here, Mrs. Nabila Aguele.
Hello.
Hello, Nabila. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So for those who haven't listened, Nabila is a lawyer, a special advisor to the Minister of Finance in Nigeria, a colleague, a friend, someone that's very dear to me. And today I'm beginning with the start of the quote, which is creativity and communications, right?
Mm-hmm.
You did. So creativity and communications. And my reason for this is, obviously I've known you over the years, for those who haven't caught who Nabila is and what she's done in life, go back a couple of episodes and watch Mrs. Nabila Aguele. And listen, also. So Nabila, you are a creative. We didn't get to talk about that the last time. We were keeping it very professional, and talking about our day-to-day lives. But behind the scenes, there's a lot more to who you are, right? So I want the world to know the creative side of Nabila. So I'll start with my experience of you, right? As a communication specialist, you've supported me over the years, with the best form of communications, the kind of words to use, what to present, how to present. You don't even know that you do it. Sometimes you do, a lot of times you don't. But there's that of you. You're an excellent storyteller, and I don't think the world gets to see that or hear it. Once in a while we have this opportunity. For example, I know you're on the board of Girl Rising.
Yes.
And Girl Rising is a non-governmental organization. You may want to talk about that. And I've listened to you in a couple of the things you've done with them, and you have great storytelling abilities, right? So I want you to just tell me a little bit about storytelling in your life and what it means to you.
Sure. So the secret's out. I am a quote-unquote creative. So for me, storytelling, words, prose, it begins with a deep love of literature and reading. We grew up around books, going to the library. So prose, I love prose. I love good writing. I love good storytelling. And it's what attracted me to the type of law that I practiced. I was a litigator, and a lot about litigation is around taking a set of facts, the facts that are presented to you, and weaving a truthful story that is the most persuasive for your
when you're
client.
A good lawyer.
Exactly. So persuasive writing, objective writing, and in our current work, I get to bring that to the fore in a lot of speech writing, and I sort of developed that skill set on the job. I didn't come in thinking that I would do speech writing, but it's again an idea around saying, who is this person that I'm writing for? What are we trying to persuade around? What are we trying to demonstrate around the person's work? So that for me is where the storytelling comes from. In terms of Girl Rising, it's a global nonprofit that focuses on girls' empowerment and child education. It comes from an amazing documentary film that came out where they took the stories of the actual girls and had celebrities narrate them, and the stories were written by writers from the countries that the girls belong to, and the idea was to really help people understand the value of education, the life-changing value of education. So with Girl Rising, the idea is to empower girls through stories, their own stories and those of others, and to really humanize what it means to educate a girl in another country that you may not be familiar with.
This sounds even deeper for me now because, I've had a chance to go through some of these prospects and the posts from Girl Rising, your interviews, and now I'm thinking about it, like storytelling, if you look through everything you've been through, whether it's being a teacher, a lecturer, right? A legal person, an artist. So I'm coming back to the creativity aspect of things. What makes you a creative, apart from the storytelling, of course?
For me, it's just something that I cannot separate from who I am. The word creative is a new one to me. It's a label that I've adopted recently. But when I think back, there's always been I've always felt the need to express myself, to put my emotions and thoughts out into the world, and to also feel a sense of connectedness and meaning. And the creative arts, whether it's music, whether it's prose, whether it's film, whether it's theater, for me, there's just something magical about the way in which stories allow us to shed a specific shield, to feel vulnerable, to feel joy, to feel pain, and to also get across topics and issues that break barriers, uncomfortable topics that you might not otherwise be able to broach. So for me, it's meditation, it's life.
It's life.
It's not a hobby. We talked about I remember earlier when we were prepping, you were asking me about hobbies, and I hate that word for me as a creative
hate
or whatever.
Is a strong word.
No, I don't hate it. Yes, but for me, I guess the word hobby sort of limits something that is temporary, something that you pick and you cast down at a whim. Whereas I think for a lot of us who are creatively inclined, and it colors all of who we are and what we do to the extent that we're empowered to have it do so. It's more than that. It's life. It's meditation. And that's
it
really
is life,
what it is.
Really. And I was very happy to stumble on your work. I was quite upset. I was like, what? This girl paints? And like, it's like real life painting? What? You still owe me a portrait of the kids.
I do.
I know it's my fault. I haven't sent a photo, but I saw your art, and there's one in particular that I really connected with. It was a little boy.
The red hat.
The red hat.
Everyone loves the red hat.
Oh,
or red
my
cap. I forget
God.
what it is that I call it.
I don't know, but it was, the guy was wearing a red hat.
He's holding a stick and it's sort of bending gracefully over his shoulder.
It was such a beautiful portrait, and I feel like it's one of those classics. You know, there's some portraits you connect with around the world, and it's like, I think I genuinely feel, who owns it?
I do. In fact,
so I can get it.
No. So part of my challenge as an artist is that
letting go.
I mean,
right?
it's been years since I've painted, and we're going to get into that, I'm sure. But part of the challenge I faced is that it was such a new thing for me when I started painting. It's something that happened serendipitously. I never set out to label myself a painter or an artist. It was an instructor who did that for me, and who was like, what you're doing here is art.
It's art.
And you're good at it. And you need to show, you need to claim it. I've not been able to sell or give away any of I've given away art, but I've not sold anything. And I think part of the reason is that when I started, it wasn't with an eye towards selling or showing. It
was just you expressing yourself.
It was just sort of something I was drawn to. There's a pull. I can't explain it any other way. There's something in me that looks at art, and initially I started with drawing and says, I can do this. I want to do this. I want to try. And
so it's very personal to you.
It's very personal. It's very organic. And then the notion around labeling myself
I still want
as
the red hat
artist, you'll have to fight. Do you know how long the list is? The red hat list.
I know. Maybe you should
owners.
create like 15 different versions of the same red hat guy.
And I've thought about doing some limited edition prints of that piece in particular.
I think
really,
it would.
It really resonates with a lot of people.
It's really amazing.
For me, art was always sort of that escape, that place to meditate, and then life happened, right? I was practicing law when I started painting and really got into it, and then we moved and we came here, and as you know, as everybody knows, we've had all our kids over the last 6 years.
Right?
So we have a full house of 3 toddlers under 5. So yes, there is definitely a plan to do more creatively in terms of producing my own art.
Yes.
But in terms of being creatively minded and working with creatives, that's already happening. So what I realized was, for a period of time, I was sort of stuck in this place where it was like, I can't paint, I can't write, therefore all is lost. Just feeling that sense of lost potential, and people will ask about it. That there's a talent there, and then you're
just not inspired.
Or you just don't have the time. Life is moving so fast. You have other goals to achieve, and so what I decided was, even though I can't paint right now, or this is a season in my life where I have to focus my energy elsewhere, that creative side of me is still going to be fulfilled through other things.
Yeah.
So Girl Rising, for example.
Talent X, let's not forget.
Yes,
so Nabila is also a board member on Talent X.
Yes.
Tell us about Talent X.
Right. So Talent X is a Nigeria-founded Africa startup whose focus is around creating a platform to pair filmmakers with funding and producers.
Yes.
So I mean, there's so many ways in which talent reflects that. We have currently a number of films in production. In fact, the first film, they just released a poster for Bani. So if you go to the Talent X platforms, you will see the poster for Bani, which is a film being made by a really amazing set of creatives, including Anita. So definitely watch out for that. And the idea is to nurture creative talent, because the truth is, and I say this with all due respect, I think our film industry, that we're just scratching the very surface.
Yes. There's a lot more to be done.
There's a lot of ground to be broken, and it's a really exciting time, especially with what's happening on Netflix, to be part of that space.
And we have the population to match, really.
And we have the talent for it. We have the talent for it. So there's talent, there's Girl Rising, which at its core is about the creative arts, storytelling. Girl Rising was founded by a number of producers who worked on the original film, so who saw their creative talents as a means of advancing good. And then, of course, there's storytelling, there's prose, there's communication. We talked about communication. So it's there, but I do, hopefully this year, the plan is this year to get back into painting again.
Well, I love it. I think for me, I look at all the things that you do, and that's one of the reasons I said you needed to come back on, because we were talking about professional life, the legal life, public policy, government, things like that in the previous episode that you were on here. And for me, I know, like, we're just like you just said now, we are scratching the surface of who Nabila is. There's just this whole amazing human being that has all this in her. And I resonate with what you said earlier, because I think as an artist, I paint, and from 2013, I did not paint again till during the lockdown.
Wow.
Yeah. Not one stroke.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, if you look around the house, it's all 2013 paintings, apart from the newer ones from 2020. And I think it's the same thing. I just had a baby. I transitioned to a new state. I moved into the whole public service. It was a lot, right? But one thing I realized moving on was that I still needed that creative side of me. You talked about it being meditative. You talked about, just let it be life. It feels like life. It feels like... So I remember taking the time to say, okay, I'm going to just express myself and put it out there. I think the last series I did was called Who Is She? And I think that if you look at this is it for me. Who is Nabila?
Right.
What makes you who you are? What drives you? Right? So I'm going to look at the perspective of you as a creative artist, as a storyteller, as a legal person, as a public, et cetera,
right? Jack of all trades.
Do all of these. And what is amazing is not that you're just a jack of all trades. You're amazing in each aspect.
Thank you.
That's why I love your work, right? So I want you to now tell me, like, do these all interconnect for you, or do you feel you have to be in a certain space to handle each and every one of these things?
They absolutely do. And I think that is a reflection of growth. I've grown to a place where I no longer have to apologize for having multiple interests.
So I'll pause. Let's pause. Why did you feel the need to apologize prior to now?
Because the truth is, people are always asking, what are you?
What are you?
When I started painting, the question was, oh, you're so good at this.
Yeah.
So is this what you're going to do now? Do you still love law?
Yeah.
When I moved to...
Are you still a lawyer?
Exactly. When I went to business school, instead of becoming a law professor, because the truth was, the plan was for me to go on the teaching market, as it's known, to be recruited as a law professor.
Yes.
And I did do that after business school, but still made the decision to withdraw and come to Nigeria to chase something else. So throughout my life, there's always been this sense of, but what are you really? What are you? You say you like this. You say you like art. You want to be a lawyer. But you want to what are you?
What are you?
And that question has always plagued me, and it's never been asked in an exploratory way, in a nice way. It's been asked in a way of, you
need to fit
there
into
boxes, and you need to fit into those boxes. I think we're living in this beautiful period where there's less of a need to be one thing. So I really envy and am in awe of those who are growing up now.
Yes, we actually talked about it. Yes,
because you're also the same, right?
Yes.
Who are multi-hyphenates. But for me, I reached a place where I understood that this is not a flaw. It's not a lack of focus.
Yes.
It's not a lack of clarity. It's not a lack of understanding of who I am.
I'm going to do the poetry thing.
No, like seriously. And business school helped with that. Business school teaching so many of these journeys. And I think being here these last 6 years have really sort of culminated in this aha, which is that no, there's different types of people. There are those who will focus on one core thing for the duration of their life, and that's a beautiful thing. I have friends, I have family who do that. And then there are those of us who we wander, but not in the sense that we're lost or we're confused. It's from that sense of, like, my world outlook, I can't just see things through the lens of a lawyer or a business person or a policy person or a Nigerian. For me, all of that informs my view, and my perspectives, my ideas sit at the margins of different schools of thought, of the different cultures to which I belong. And I bring all of that to what I am today, currently. And I think, you know what it was? It was COVID.
It was COVID.
2020.
Yes.
COVID
really.
We were in South Africa, and I had a lot of time to think. And I just wanted to think strategically about, okay, what is it that I love doing? What are the common threads between these different things that I love? And certain things started to emerge. The creative person is who I am at my core. Education, INSEAD, Girl Rising. So much of what I love education. I love this idea of building people, building institutions, mentoring women, girls, empowerment, period. To me, a world where we're not talking about empowering women and girls, not just in and of itself, but as a means to development, especially in Africa, I don't want to be part of conversations where that's not part of it.
Exactly.
So I started to see that these different threads, there's a commonality, and increasingly I'm going to bring that to my work and to my volunteer life, to my friendships, because it's not something that's external to me. It's at the core of who I am, and there's room for those things to coexist. So all these different pieces, the different threads, they come together nicely.
I really appreciate what you said about, everything being interconnected and finding yourself wanting to express yourself, and especially post-COVID, because I think many of us went through that. It was a really serious period because everyone thought we're all going to die first.
Yes.
And then we went through the dying phase. Okay, we're not dying, but do we want our lives to remain the same?
Right.
And then, like I said, for me, I hadn't painted since 2013. And COVID gave that time, that space, appreciation for everything beautiful and colorful. The other day I was reading an article and they said almost, was it 60% of truck drivers? 60% of truck drivers let go of their jobs to be with their families.
Wow.
Something like that, 60 or 40%, something. It was very high. Yes. They were looking at a gender thing, hiring female drivers, like people who wouldn't normally have had the opportunity, just to fill up the gap. And for me, I was like, okay, we didn't see this gap until there was a real gap. You know what I mean? But I appreciated that, and it just shows the amount of opportunities that have happened. Obviously, we've had a lot of issues that also came up that were quite negative with COVID. But that introspection and connecting with oneself, I think that's probably why you mentioned earlier the TikToks, the new people on Instagram, what other new apps are there? I'm not young enough to know.
Twitter Spaces is also really, I think, dynamic.
Yeah, so like a lot of creative people have had the space to express themselves. The lack of okay, we're all gonna die anyway, so I might as well put myself out there, right? And we've been able to see the world thrive when it comes to the creative sector. So one thing I wanted to ask you earlier, which I'm already laughing.
Well, I know, I see this laugh.
Your love for K-drama.
Oh my gosh.
and
K-drama
Indian
and
films
Bollywood.
and Bollywood.
Yeah.
So do you see, like, I watched this movie of Bollywood meets Nollywood.
Ah, yes.
And I think
I've seen it
Adora
too.
and a whole bunch of them were behind the scenes to make that happen. And I was like, okay, with Talent X, are we thinking about stuff like that? You know, collaborations, connecting younger people from different continents, things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for talent, the fundamental goal is great storytelling.
Yeah.
If you have an amazing story, you have an amazing screen.
I'm not advertising for Talent X,
and
by
it's
the way.
just for anyone.
Yeah.
For anyone who's in the creative space, I feel like authentic, great, good stories that are really going to pull at your heart. Like, think about some of the best films you've seen in any language, in any culture. They're the films that stay with you either because of the humor or the emotion or the imagery, and then can you put together a production team, a director, etc., who can bring that to life so that as you're watching and experiencing it, the music, the imagery, all of it transforms your experience, and you walk away and you're like, that has stayed with me.
Yes, it has.
So I think there's room for more of that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more films that bring together different cultures, both different continents within Africa, and also just telling different stories from different perspectives, subverting what we think is the African narrative, the Nigerian narrative, and what storytelling is on the continent.
I love it, love it. Thank you so much, Nabila, for being on here. You know, I thought we'll do a lot of giggling.
Yeah, we did it. We did more the last
We've
time.
been really good.
Yeah.
But, you know, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it again. And I'm very happy that you're expressing all these different aspects of you. And I think the creative life is, like you said, life.
Absolutely.
And I love every aspect of every kind of work that you do.
And I have to credit you, Aisha. I don't know if you remember.
Okay.
We had a conversation about putting oneself out there. We didn't talk about that this time around.
Yeah, we did.
And that's something you do amazingly well.
Oh, yeah.
Not just doing the work behind the scenes, but then also sharing. You know, you have your diary on Instagram, as you call it. Yes. And there was a point where I wasn't creating, but you knew I was taking a lot of pictures and we were having all these conversations.
I remember.
You said you need to share more of this life of who you are with others. And that in and of itself has helped.
And you know what is beautiful? I met people. This world is such a small place. I went to condole a friend. And then I met this young lady who I thought was exceptional. And I was like, oh my God, you have to meet my colleague. I think you guys would connect. I say your name. And she's like, she literally like wanted to cry.
Are you serious? You've not told me this story.
She was the girl you got into for the INSEAD. You were her sponsor or something?
There's a scholarship that there's a scholarship.
And I was just like, yes, I know great people. You know? Yeah. So those kind of stories really help me because I know putting yourself out there, you get to inspire people. They get to pick out things about you. Like what you said now, you said there are different types of people. I can look at my mom. My mom is a full career person.
100%.
Legal. Yeah. From day one. She's now in the Supreme Court, so you can imagine how many years of her life doing I won't call it the same thing, but the same thing, right? And then you have people like me that have had 10 different jobs in 10 different, sectors. But today I find myself in a space where I'm allowed to put all these things together.
Yeah, it's powerful.
To create policies.
It's powerful. And that's the genesis, I think, of true innovation.
Honestly,
and true change.
It's such a beautiful thing, you know. So when I think of someone like you who's on these boards where you as a creative person understands the needs of the people that you are supporting, there's nothing more beautiful than that. Then having the serious side, we call it the serious side because people don't take creative seriously. But guess what? The world cannot revolve. It evolves, around creativity.
Absolutely.
There is nothing. Even if you're doing a government campaign, you need the creatives, you need the designers, you need the logo people, you need the colors. Every logo that was created, whether it's the American Air Force or the Nigerian Police Force, it was a creative person who sat down with a pen, paper, pencil, and created something that becomes what the world looks at as a representation of whatever these people are.
Right.
You
and
know?
Look at the work that you do. I mean, we do work that for some people can seem very dry. Policies, budgets, numbers, fiscal policy. And the very work that you do is around distilling that into relatable information. You know, and I think that's beautiful. That's where advocacy meets policy change. If you can't break it down and make it palatable for people, you're not going to change hearts and minds.
True. Thank you. So I think for me, creativity, reinventing oneself, you know, constantly evolving and just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Right? Was it Maya Angelou that says flow like water?
Yeah. And I think the going with the flow, because here's the other
going
thing.
With the flow.
Here's the other danger, and I don't want us to come across this way. The reinvention and doing multiple things, because right now I think we're getting to another place where there's this addiction towards being a multi-hyphenate.
Yes,
and being,
where you now force it and you're trying to.
You'll see some bios on LinkedIn and the person is like 20 and it's like, I'm a comms expert and I'm a market strategist and I'm a I think we need to understand that life is happening in seasons. Your growth is happening in seasons. You and I didn't game our way into this.
True.
It's who we are. We can't change it. It's just that we've grown into a place where we're able to really maximize on the best aspects of who we are as creatives and bring that to our work, whether it's creative work or otherwise.
I think for me also, if I look back, I would say one of the main things that I would have wanted to do as a young person is to be deliberate. Do you understand? Like, so I know the things that I love, but you find yourself in spaces where you let go in a certain way, or you're not maximizing those opportunities. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably one thing I would say I would look back on and be like, I'm not going to change anything. I love the way my life is. I love who I am today. I love all the experiences that I've had. But that extra deliberateness of being and absorbing and 100% being in the moment of these experiences is what I would probably just change just a little bit and just get deeper into it a little bit more.
At the time.
Yes.
But you know, I think that's hindsight and that's growth for you. Because when you're in it, you're sometimes you're just trying to thrive.
Yes,
sometimes
you're
trying
just
to
moving.
survive.
True.
You're moving through it. And life is so complicated and layered that even now, even as we're saying this, I know that yesterday and tomorrow and the day after, we're having those moments where we're like bogged down, and overwhelmed and frustrated and annoyed and feeling impatient that things aren't moving fast
Nabila
enough.
and I have these days that we would speak for up to 3-4 hours, just frustrated, but getting ourselves out of it. I think that's what I love about our conversations, because you end up deep into it, but then you realize, okay, I've done enough of this. You know, it's done. I've vented.
It's a safe space.
It's a safe space. I've vented.
Those moments and where you're like, am I crazy?
Am I crazy? Who am I? Everyone, yes.
It's not just me. We all need those soul sisters.
And then you also have people who say things like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, you end up with a complex sometimes.
It can be very triggering.
It triggers you, because if you're not self-aware and you're not 100% confident in who you are, you now start thinking, who am I really? And this person who asked this question has left you confused. You know, so we have those moments too. So it's not like you're perfect in who you are. I think we're all imperfectly perfect.
Absolutely.
And we should just continue with whatever makes us happy.
Right.
That is good for you and society.
Absolutely.
So with that, Nabila, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Aisha.
I am 100% sure I will have you on here again.
Anytime.
We have probably like 4 topics that we could speak
I know. I think there's a reason I call you my soul sister, my soul twin.
You know? Thank you for coming, Aisha. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening, and speak to you next time. Bye. By the way, I love your work.